Okay, hello everybody. It's 6 o'clock, so I'm sorry, 6:30. So we're gonna get started. We have a few people online as well as here in the library. Thank you for attending, all of you, especially, not especially, but those online as well. A few things to note. Everybody has a handout, right? Yeah. Okay, we also on the front table up here, I have a handout for the genealogy programs that we're having for the rest of the year. We've already booked a couple programs for next year. So we have in March of next year, a woman from Finland who's going to be zooming in from Finland and helping everybody with their Finnish research. And then we have somebody in April who is zooming in to talk about British and UK research. So that's for next year. It's also a levy year for us. So there's a fact sheet for our levy up here on the table. I also would like to remind everybody to make sure that you are registered to vote. If you need help with that, we can help you here at the library. I do believe we have until November 11th. Does anybody know? I think you have to make sure that that's all in place by November. I'm sorry, October 11th. Yes, I think, or 10th or 11th. So check all that out. If you need help, we can help you. And I'd like to thank the auditor staff and Dennis Huey for coming in tonight. This is a very common question that I get here at the library. How do I research my house? So I'd like to welcome Deb Mohney, Heidi Barringer, and Dennis Huey from the auditor's office. And I'm going to hand it over to Dennis. He's going to start. And if anybody has any questions, just kind of stick your arm up and we'll do that. And for those who are online, as they're presenting tonight, they're going to try to keep an eye on the queue for the questions and answers or chat. So if you have any questions online, type them in the chat box or the Q&A, and they will try to address them as they are speaking, but just have patience with them with that. Okay. All right. Come on up, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dennis Huey. I'm the real estate manager for the Ashtabula County Auditor's Office. I have a lot of background in old houses. I've restored 2 of them. And the one we live in today we've been there for 29 years. So our home is now 202. And so it's 2 centuries old. I'd like to thank Heidi and Deb for helping me in this. They're extensively interested in not only genealogy, but historic research. And we have a lot of interesting conversations on those rare occasions when things slow down in the auditor's office. Although usually they're zooming around and I'm zooming around. So anyway, I'd like to welcome you who are online. And if you have any questions as we go. Now in the room here, I'm going to say, if you have any questions, let's hold them towards the end of the session because unless you're online, because we want to give each person the chance to share their information. I'm going to begin the session tonight by looking at different historic home styles. I've been in this trade as a real estate appraiser since 1976. And so I studied extensively historic homes, not only the styles, but the types of construction and materials used, even down to moldings and doorways and doors and so forth like that. So I geek out on that kind of stuff. You know, the kids tend to geek out on computers. I'm an old house geek. And when people come to our house, I say, welcome to my old shack. So we're going to begin tonight. And I have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. Let's see if I can get this thing to. Okay, Deb.
So you just okay,
Bear with us.
There. So if you can tap it, it'll go down.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I can get it up there.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
Yeah. Even if you just kind of tap it next in the one below it too, it'll work. Go ahead or drag it.
There. My presentation, my PowerPoint is going to be early home styles of Ashtabula County. Each area is different. The home was settled in the county was settled in the 1790s. And we're going to look at the first generation of homes. And if you look at the first one, is not the kind most of you ladies would like to live in, although some do. It's the log home. The early settlers that came here had no improved roads. They had Indian trails and game trails. So anyone that says that they had a home in Ashtabula County that was a frame or brick home in this time period is not being accurate, because they simply did not have the means to construct these types of homes. Sawmills for sawing dimensional lumber or making bricks came later. This is the Blakesley log cabin of circa 1809. This type of home was very common in the county from the mid 1790s until, up to the Civil War. Not everyone had the means to build and construct a nice frame or brick home. And there is one exception to these log homes. In Denmark Township, when the Swedes moved out there from Ashtabula, they did construct a group of log homes. I think there's possibly one still surviving near the intersection of 167 and 193, but they build rude log homes. And but that was towards the turn of 1900 and 1910. Can you hear me okay? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have to try to speak up a little bit. Thank you. So this was the first generation of log home or homes for Ashtabula County. They were followed by as sawmills became available and contractors and those who could build these types of homes. The first architectural style other than a log home was your federal home. The early federal homes were taken after the English style, the Adams style in England. But you'll see that in the early years, they quickly developed into what we call the Greek Revival. But your federal homes were influenced by England and in some respects, Greece and Rome. You can always tell these homes by and they come in various styles. They usually, in the ends, they have what they call fan vents or fan windows or sunbursts, and very common styles of architectural details. And the first one actually is the center chimney. Those are pretty early. We've seen those phased out by the 1830s. But then you also had federal style homes that had end chimneys. If you look, this home doesn't have all the chimneys left, but there were probably originally 4 chimneys that
Do you see this arrow?
Mhm.
Not that one, but that one.
A single arrow.
The single arrow to the two.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go back.
Which is the single arrow. Yeah, one more time.
Oh, went to the next.
Slide number 6. Go back one more, maybe.
There we go. Okay, you see many of the federal homes have more than one fireplace because that's how they heated. They had fireplaces, and then later on as metal wood stoves became in style and were made in the county, they were inserted into the fireplace openings and were actually just a little more efficient. Those are still cold years, and a lot of your early federal homes have lower ceilings in our area. The Yankees were pretty smart because they knew they had to heat these homes, and it was important to have lower ceilings to preserve the heat, because as we know, heat rises. Okay, 1825, the Greek Revival style comes in. Now these dates are approximate because some were a few years before and some styles remained on. the Greek revival, the founding fathers who formed our nation were greatly influenced by the Roman and Greek cultures. The Republic of Greece, the Republic of Rome, and they were influenced not only in writing, but in architecture, in politics, in leadership. They were greatly influenced. So these style of homes, this home here on the screen is typical of what would be influenced by what we know as the Parthenon in Greece, which was a much larger structure, but yet you see the use of columns and low roof lines. They don't have the real tall gable roof lines like you see in some Victorian homes. They were like a 412 pitch and were lower. And there again, they used end windows for the gable ends. And in this case, this is the house my wife and I live in. And it had, originally we determined it had 6 fireplaces in it. It's down to 2 now. Now, not all Greek Revival homes were, there we go. Not all Greek Revival homes were fancy. This home is a Greek Revival. And you see it has the simple cornice returns at the bottom of the roof line where the gutters are on the side. Cornice returns are a reflection of the Greek Revival style. This is a home that you would find in a small town like Austinburg or Kingsville or any small town. And it's very typical even of Greek Revival farmhouses. Simpler, but yet influenced by the Greek style of architecture. Now the porch on this is later because the Greek Revival they didn't build attached porches out. They had inset porches that were built under the roof line, usually if you had a 1-story wing. And by the way, if you have any questions later on interior details, I can sit down and help you. Now, the Victorian style came along in Queen Victoria's reign. She was not an architect, and she did not design homes, but it seems like the majority of our old homes in Ashtabula County, other than Greek Revival or Federal, are classified as Victorian style homes, when in fact they were a series of sub-styles that were influenced not by Queen Victoria, but by different nations such as Italy, France, Greece, and most European countries. By that time, Americans had the ability to take a steamship to Europe to travel and vacation, and they brought these styles back with them. And of course, the wife says, "Honey, I want to have one of these. I'm tired of those old dusty Greek revivals, you know." So the Greek Revival, by the time the Civil War came around, was pretty much out in style. But the Victorian style overlaps that. And we're going to see some of the sub-styles. Now, there's some that, this is by far not an exhaustive search because there are so many other styles which we don't even find in Ashtabula County. You go to some places like Cleveland or Chicago or Rochester, New York, or Buffalo, New York, you see other sub-styles of Victorian that we just don't see. Well, we are lucky to have, and I think there are 3 octagon homes in Ashtabula County. And I think there's also an octagon, no, there's actually 4 homes. And there's also an octagon barn in Monroe Township. So it was an odd style. If you ever want to look at some research, Google octagon homes and there's different ideas as far as why people built octagon homes. But 1850 to 60 seemed to be the predominant period, although there's one in the county in Austinburg, which I tend to think might have come a little bit later. One of the big styles you see is the Italianate style. Now, it doesn't mean it's just from Italy, but you see it when they went to Europe, they saw a lot of Italian style villas with a low roof line. And and just a very different style from your Greek revivals. This home is in Jefferson, and so you can, I don't know, you can see the Italian influence in it. On the top, they call it a widow's walk, but I think it was actually more of a sun porch on top because there weren't that many widows that could afford to build a widow's walk. Here's another example of an Italianate. You can see it's very similar to the first one, but they do vary. But you can see the Italianate style is typical, having the low profile roof lines. They were great in Italy where the climate is different, but in Northeast Ohio, they're problematic at best. And they started building a lot of them during and after the Civil War. Now here's a different style. This style hails from France. It's called Second Empire. It kind of makes you think of the Addams Family house, only this one was a nice home. I appraised this home for the family, and it's quite a classic home. They invested a lot of money into it. But it has that swooping roof line, and it wasn't in style for too long, and there's not a lot of them around, but somebody in the 1960s took that roof line and developed apartment projects of the same style, and sometimes even urban homes or suburban homes have a similar roof style, but that style was resurrected, but it didn't last very long.
Where is that home?
That home is south of the center of Rock Creek. If you're familiar with Rock Creek, it's just south of the traffic light in the center of town. It's on the west side of State Route 45. I drove by for years when I was in business, and it was a shambles. And I would have guessed it would have collapsed, but the family that restored it put a heck of a lot of money into it. And they did a heck of a job. They had to replace most of the trim in the house. It was that bad. They used black walnut, and they had it milled to exact dimensions. So they did everything the right way. But it was truly the money pit. But it's a beautiful home. Now here's kind of a transitional style. Italianate and Second Empire. You can see the main house has the lower roof line and the Italianate style, but then you have this tower in the front that has, now this looks more like the Addams Family house. And it has that Second Empire roof line on the tower in the center, which is kind of, that house is in Conneaut. Now here's the Queen Anne style. This was more of a feminine, appealing to the ladies, beautiful, influenced by castles, French architecture, European style, and this property is also in Conneaut. It was toward the end of the Victorian era. It's a beautiful home. It has a water tank in the attic that's thousands of gallons, holds thousands of gallons of water. It dates back to when the home was built. It was pretty neat. How am I doing for time?
Right.
Okay. Come on. Early 20th century. Now here's the thing. We've talked about the Federal Greek Revival. We talked about the Victorian era, the early 20th century. On the threshold of a new century, Americans look to the future. In the past for home styles that reflected their traditions. The result was a mix of old and new styles. This is a colonial revival. Now, colonial is kind of one of those terms like Victorian that gets misused. This is in some ways a colonial home, but when they revived the colonial style, and that's what they called it, they built their homes as a mix of not only colonial American style, but also Federal Greek Revival. I can look at this home and I could show you elements of both styles, both periods, but it's not a true colonial in the sense of what a colonial is. Although other appraisers and real estate people would disagree, but if you're a purist, it's not. Now, the next style, and we're getting close to the end here, Craftsman Style. It was in style from 1895 to 1930, where the Queen Anne was more of a feminine style. The Craftsman became more of a masculine style. It was a mix of siding types, from wood shake to wood lap to stone to brick, and they made a, and if you see a well done Craftsman style, it has a variety of siding types, and the interiors are usually, oak trim with faux beams and different elements that, big stone fireplaces, more masculine. Okay, so it was a very popular style even with the ladies of the day. The last style I have here is the four square. Now, people have asked me, why is it called the four square? Because basically these are square boxes, and this one has a wing on the back, but four square is basically a home that is 24 by 24, could be 24 by 26 as far as its dimensions. So it was just a basic urban style. You could almost see colonial and Greek Revival elements in it, but it was a mix of styles. And architects of the day were building a lot of these. Now, the last time we had this session, I was not here because I had COVID, but the staff and Dave had a question about, why don't you include farmhouses? The farmhouses were these styles. Now, they were not always fancy. Some of them were quite simple, but you can look at I can take you and show you the elements of the particular style of the farmhouse, whether it's a four square or a Greek Revival. This county was peppered with Greek Revival homes before the Civil War. And there are still a couple hundred, 300, 400 that are still left. So there is a vast number of them. So this is the last of the styles before we enter the period after the Depression, when World War II ended and young men came home from war and they started building tract homes. Your little ranch homes, great, your Cape Cod story-and-a-half homes, little 2 stories, 1,200 square feet. And I kind of chuckle a little bit when someone will say, well, we're looking at this 1950s Cape Cod. It's a historic home. And it doesn't quite fit my definition of it yet. Now, maybe when I'm gone, I don't care what they call it. Okay. But for me, it's not really yet a historic home, although they are a part of our history's past. So, well, I'd like to thank you all for my portion. And we're going to turn it now over to Heidi Barringer. And Heidi is going to, I guess, as she comes up, the main purpose I wanted you is to help you identify different architectural types. Not all homes are Victorian homes. There's a vast history in these styles. Come on, Heidi.
Sure.
Thank you.
And sir, all those homes in there should be all found.
Yes, I photographed them all myself. Yeah. So they're all, and there's many more. I could have taken pictures of 100 homes. We have some beautiful homes in this county. And anytime someone comes to me and says, I want to do a home, it makes me feel good, especially younger people. So, Heidi,
Thanks, Dennis.
thank you. And I think all you gotta do is
I think I'm ready.
just click,
Perfect.
just click it, and you're all set.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Heidi, and I'm a conveyance clerk at the auditor's office. And
before I knew what I was going to be when I grew up, I spent many years as a title examiner. So what we're going to go over is a chain of title. Now, when you figured out what style of home you have, and you possibly look on our website and say, well, it's built in 1900, you know, that can be off. So the first step is working your way backwards. If you think your house was built in 1880, how do you get to that point? So if you notice on the top of this sheet, which I call a chain sheet, I have the address of the property, which over time can change. I have the permanent parcel number, as well as the acreage of the property currently. And then what lot, what section, where is it located, what township? That's very important because, you know, over time, things get split out. Sometimes they even get combined. So you have to be able to keep track of your piece of property throughout time. What I did was I did a chain of title for a property that I recently purchased out of an estate. And I start with the current title deed. Who owns it? Who did they get it from? And if you're lucky, the deed that you have would reference the previous volume and page of when the sellers purchased the property. If it doesn't, then you would have to go through the indexes at the recorder's office, and Deb will explain some easy ways to do that without actually going there. But you want to work your way backwards, and what you're specifically looking for is a change in price. Now, if we move down this page a little bit, I can do that. I have to go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, I can't do it.
Over to the right, down arrow.
Right there?
Yep.
All right.
You gotta get on the arrow.
Yeah, we're trying. Okay, there we go. So now this property actually had like 2 parcels. And the one little 0.03 is just a little section for a driveway. But if you look, you have a quitclaim deed. It went from E.S. Tenney. He purchased it for $425. And then this Hiram Rice in 1880 purchased it for $1,800. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, $425 for the 1 acre of land. Either Tenney probably put a house on it, and then Hiram Rice purchased the property. So that's how I kind of determined this house was built between 1879 and 1880. And then the next page, I just added a chain sheet. So if you were working on your property, you could make a copy of that and work your way down through to when you think the house is built. And then at the end of that, you would want to come into our office and you're going to look at the tax rolls and you're going to check and see what those values actually were. You know, what was the value of the property when E.S. Tenney owned it? What was the value of the property when Hiram Rice owned it? And sometimes if you're lucky, it will say that there's, you know, a dwelling, and that would have been when the house was actually erected. And I don't have much more, so if you have questions.
Questions off till the end?
Okay.
Okay, we'll let Deb. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. I'm just gonna take a quick peek here.
You can do this online. A lot, there is no time frame. You really have to go to check. Or here at the library. Because Gary has this. I don't have.
Just gotta see how many participants. I looked, yeah. I got this one. We need to go to the next one.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to a couple of different ones because Heidi skipped over her stuff.
It's just easy updates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get to the right page here. Heidi has some samples in there for you and some maps. Her piece. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Deb from the auditor's office and work in the conveyance room as well. And we're going to skip right to this section here, searching the age of your home. Okay. When you come in, searching the age of your home, you need to know, like, say, for example, your house was built in 1880 and you want to know who built it. So when you come in to search our records, we need to know the owner's name and what year they possibly purchased it in order for us to look at the tax roll. We need also, it's helpful to have the lot and acreage, like Heidi was explaining with the change sheet. If you do that change sheet, you come in, that helps us to help you to figure out where to start looking. Okay. When trying to determine when the house was built, also helps if you look at the 1874 Atlas. On the 1874 Atlas, which I can just go, I think that might be on the next page here. So that's this is the 1874 Atlas, and I've kind of highlighted the map there in lot 46 with the green around it. On my screen, it should be, I think yeah, so right here, that piece there, you see a little black dot. You see a school across the street? That's where my home is now. And across the street from me is this house that was built, after I researched it, it was actually built in 1838. And what I did is I started with this map because I know that it's older than 1880, because there's beams in the bottom of, in the basement of trees with the actual bark still on them. And she has the big fieldstone rock as the foundation of the home. So that was a good indication that it was older. So I started with McQuarrie and worked my way back. He had 100 acres. And so I started with that to research, you know, who was the next owner of the property. So I went back to one more map. Maps can be very helpful. Let me get this to go one more time. There we go. So this is map here is of the same parcel, but there you'll see that there's several buildings on it. And this map is actually older than the first map I showed you. And this map actually hangs on the wall up in the recorder's office, and it's the whole county. So it gave me another name, J.P. Jennings. So now I know for sure it was there in 1856. So now I have to start with J.P. Jennings, and I have to start researching him in the index books, which the recorder's office has all of the index books that you can research it from, but you can also research from home any of these older indexes. And that in the pamphlet here, we have the information for that. It's a familysearch.org website. You create a free account, and there's steps in the pamphlet tell you exactly how to go about researching it from home in there. So I know that JP Jennings owned it. So then I just, this is a little sample of the index that I kind of put together. So basically it's kind of like a chain sheet that I did for this piece of property. And I started with, at the top there, that Samuel McQuarrie as the grantee. So he received that property in 1873, but there was no sale price. Over to the right, I have a sale price column. There was no sale price on the deed. So I just kept working my way back. And you'll notice the legal description, it was 114.72 acres. And eventually it'll go down to 100 acres. So that's what Heidi was explaining. You want to pay attention to the legal description, because lots of times they split it off or they added it, you know, so you want to keep a close eye on that when you're researching. So I just kept going back, and you'll notice at the very bottom, I get to 1834. Ira Smith got it from Nathaniel Hubbard, and he only paid $600 for 100 acres. So I kept going. So I went to the next year, and Smith sold it to Larson, and Larson paid $1,200 for it. So right there, that tells me something happened. So that's when you want to pull the tax rolls in our office to start searching to see what was added to that piece of property. Was it a house, or was it, you know, a barn? And if you get lucky, it'll be on the tax roll. It'll say one house added, or one frame house, or brick house. So you kind of go by the values. And as you can see, the values kept going up every time they sold it. So that means they added other things, or the value just happened to go up a little bit more the following year. So with this piece of property, the next page is very hard to read, but this is from Plymouth Township 1838 Auditor's Tax Rolls, which you will find in our office. And I highlighted it in yellow, and Willard William got that piece of property, or he owned it at that time. And you'll see right below the $3, it's kind of right in here with mouse. It says one framed house. So then they added, the value went up, they added that house. So that's how you know when the house was built. So that's what you want to look for when you're researching the age of your home. Let's see. So in our office, the records that we have would be the treasurer's tax duplicates from 1845 to current, the auditor's tax list from 1838 to current, which sometimes lists when a house was added, conveyances from 1883 to current, and then our old tax maps that have some prior owners' names on them. So even if you wanted to start, we have 1983 maps, we have the engineer's tax maps, and we have the 1906 map in our office. It's available that you can't find online. And those all have names written on there, you know, from different sales. If it was sold, they would cross it off and put the new owner on there. That's very helpful also in researching your piece of property. There are a couple of different websites. The familysearch.org, you create your free account. On that, you will find land records index from 1798 to 1947, which are the same exact records you'll find in the recorder's office. So again, you can do that from home. The tax records, you can search those from 1816 to 1838. There's also probate records for marriages, births, and deaths, which are sometimes helpful when you're researching to kind of see, did that person live there, or were they gone, you know, deceased already by that time? And then they also have census records. The next helpful thing would be the maps. You'll find them on the website, the CincinnatiLibrary.org website. They have the 1874 Atlas, and they have the 1905 Atlas, which also is very helpful because it has, there's names and everything, just like the 1874. The Library of Congress website is very helpful. You can type in the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps. You'll find those years available on there, which mainly have businesses, but there are some houses on there as well. That website too, you can also Google old photos of Ashtabula or Jefferson, and you'll be amazed at how many different things you'll find on that website. And that again is all free. Let's see. And then there's on the next page, there's also the Ashtabula County, the Public Library's website on there. Carrie has a lot of stuff on there that's also helpful. And then there's the deathindex.com website if you're doing any genealogy research. And let's see what else we have. I don't. It's not going to any other page. So is that all we have in that? Oh, yeah. Why is it not going? Oh, I got it then. I got it. So then familysearch.org website. This is a step-by-step how to research the indexes on there, because you'll sign in under your free account. You'll click on search. You'll click on catalog. You'll start typing Ashtabula until you see United States, Ohio pop up. Then you want that top one that says Ashtabula. And then you'll see the whole list of everything that is available for you to research. And it's amazing, you know, what they do have on there. Again, step by step, instructions there to help you. You can also call us, send us an email. And then resources here are in the recorder's office. They have a lot of information up there. They have cemetery plot books. They have tax maps. They have the old plat and township maps, the 1856 map on the wall. They also have a hard copy of the 1874 atlas. They have the 1878 history of Ashtabula County book. They do have veterans grave registration books, infirmary records, and then miscellaneous record books available in their office as well. And they do some of the maps that I don't have listed on here. They have great big huge ones. They're start with 1820, 1830, 1841, and 1853. And those all have names on them. So that's also something to help you with your search on researching your property. And that's really all I have, unless you folks have some questions.
We'll open the floor.
Put that up on the screen so you can see if anybody online has questions. There you go.
And I don't see anybody having any questions yet.
Anybody on Zoom have any questions?
To your recorder's office or the auditor's office can be really intimidating to people, and it's so nice to have a pleasant voice to say, how can we help you? And really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Yes, we love to help. Heidi and I and Dennis, we all love to help to make sure.
Something to type your question in because you don't have access to put his hand down.
Okay, Troy, if you can type a question, we don't have access to your voice. So does anybody have any questions though? We'll answer this. This is by far not a comprehensive way to look up your home, but we've hopefully given you some tools and some understanding that you can research further. I'm available after December 31st. I'm retiring, so I'll be more available. If anybody has need of someone just to come out, I get people who tell me, as an appraiser, I'd go into people's basements and they would say, well, my house is 1940. And I'd come out and I'd say, well, it's a lot older than that. It's human beings and stone foundation. And I said, you're probably off by 100 years. And they're surprised oftentimes, yes.
My house. Roughly. The library review.
Yeah.
It's vinyl sided middle.
Well,
No, I know.
Yes, we do have a copy that you can get from our office. You can send us an email and we can email it to you.
And that's a wide range because,
It was late when we bought it, but it hadn't been made.
So I answered.
Sure. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
I have the same kind of question that you just answered. I have our house and we've got one each try. So I have
I bought an old home. I pulled off the driveway on 184 in this house. The man died. It's just east of the Route 11. It's an old brick house. Right before Mohney's farm. So
Covered over.
we got it very expensively and started the research and found that went way back to the property being,
so
I don't know who, but at the time it was in the 80s. So helpful. Back to And then giving it up into the fireplace and the castles and all those things. It was so exciting. And never have been able to.
So everybody here at the library is talking amongst themselves and asking questions in the room. Is there anybody else online that has any questions? If so, you could type it in the chat box or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And Dennis or Heidi or Deb would be happy to help you.
Are there any questions online? I'd be happy to take the question now. If you want to type one in or a chat. Is this one?
Right, it was 6 earlier.
So, I couldn't find anything, he mentioned gravel pit owned by Ashtabula City and the fairgrounds. So, I researched, I didn't want to newspaper.com, that's another place. And she started.
All right, so then, since nobody seems to have anything online, we're gonna go ahead and probably stop the program online. Thank you all for attending. There's still people in the room. I think I'm gonna let it just record for the next 15 minutes in case they're listening.
Sure.
What's going on in the room. So, thank you.
13 years, yeah, that it was there on that property. And we found the gravel. So, it's amazing, you start digging, and what we, come across and find. But we have fun doing that.
Where can you find wills?
Probates. Are you looking for old wills?
Yeah.
I have those.
Do you have some?
I think all of them.
All of them?
From 1811 to about 1920, I have, and actually they're all on family search, so you can search them. They have not been indexed yet, they've been scanned. I have all the originals here. But I can help you find them online.
About 1960.
That is
Yeah.
probate.
Yeah, probably the probate.
Yeah. They have index books in the probate office. We're not,
Any other questions?
There's one that just popped up on here, Dennis. Where are the land records located during the time when we were a part of Geauga County?
They are transcribed and they are in the recorder's office.
Okay, would they have heard that?
I think so. I think if you heard that, they're transcribed and they're in the recorder's office. Thank you.
In Ashtabula County.
Oh, shoot.
It's okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When we were part of Geauga County.
In the early years, I don't.
I have a map upstairs. I'd have to look. It's
Yeah.
probably with it
In the 17,
or 1802 up to 1802.
It was very early.
we were
We formed, we were
part of Geauga and Trumbull.
Trumbull, that's right. I thought it was Trumbull too. So it was a big county. But see, we didn't have a big population. This, of course, was the Canadian Western Reserve. It was reserved for patriots who fought in the Revolution in the state of Connecticut.
Well, it was actually Connecticut all the way through, and then they divided it up. That was way. People started coming in probably prior to 1790, but that's when they officially started like making up little settlements around.
Yeah, if you go to the recorder's office, in the Kingsville Township Book Number 3 index, in the back, it actually has, I can't remember what page it starts on, but there's a list of all the landowners that bought from the Connecticut Land Company and how they bought thousands of acres of each township. There's also a very interesting thing for Saybrook Township. If you go to Saybrook Index Book 1, you'll find an actual survey of all different townships. Very interesting read.
I
Talks about all
remember,
the trees
I remember
and-
years ago reading the Ashtabula Sentinel in 1830, 31, 32. And it actually Nehemiah Hubbard,
Mhm.
15,000 acres.
Yes.
I can't even imagine that number. When our house was built, it had 800 acres. Township of Kingsville. I can't.
Yeah, I have
imagine that.
the transfers. I don't have the deed, I have the
Anybody else
transfer
have any
books.
questions? Thank you.
Dennis, when your house was built, it was a very nice home there in Kingsville compared to a lot of the homes on the street.
See, that's the thing. I mean, it was built by someone who had the means to do it. It was built by a member of the Webster family. Daniel was a young cousin. The family history records that Smith when the King.
Yep, another question popped up, so hold on one second. Oh, somebody needs to leave. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Troy. Bye.